What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. It's another solo dolo episode today, and I'm bringing it to you guys from the A in Atlanta. And me and Chris talked about the stresses of writing game stories and how the tide changing in a game can make you completely rewrite your game story. Well, I was on the verge of doing that tonight in just my third road game of the year. And when I tell you, the Cavs never seem to want to make it easy on themselves or always want to give the opposing team a fright, that's exactly what this team does. Because in the first half, they were stagnant, slow, ineffective, and not able to get anything going offensively. They were held to just 21 points in the second quarter while allowing 30 plus points in both the first two quarters to the Atlanta Hawks. But then that third quarter comes around and they get off to a hot 25-9 run over the final 6 minutes of the third quarter to deflate a once 21-point Hawks lead. So yes, again, a team went up 20 plus points on the Cavs, and almost on back-to-back nights, they were able to overcome them. The Cavs did come back in that third quarter and took over the lead. And that third quarter just shows again how this Cavs team cannot be counted out, no matter how poorly they might have played in the beginning of the game. And when Evan Mobley was out, all eyes were on him, Jarrett Allen. And yet again, when Evan is not on the court, he's been able to step up and recognize that he needs to do more on the glass, offensively, and continue to do what he does on the defensive end. In the third quarter alone, he had 10 points and 6 rebounds on 4 of 4 shooting with a plus minus of plus 17. Man, what is up with these Cavs players and going perfect in the quarter? Because if you don't remember, Dean Wade literally on Tuesday night was 7 for 7 in the fourth quarter to bring the Cavs back from that 22-point deficit against the Celtics. And in the same week, Max Strus went 5 for 5 in the fourth quarter to bring back the Cavs against the Mavericks. Obviously, the story for Jarrett Allen has a different ending because the Cavs were not able to continue that success into the fourth quarter. And that's where it gets dicey for the Cavs because you have all of the momentum. Obviously, you're not on your home court, so you don't get the extra motivation from the fans and the crowd and things of that nature. But you just held the opposing team to 23 points while scoring 40 points and were able to regain the lead for the first time since the first quarter. You have all of the things working for you, and yet the Cavs were held to just 12 points in the fourth quarter. And that was the deciding factor. Listen, I honestly believe that when the Cavs were at home and Donovan Mitchell was able to coach up Darius Garland, was able to coach up Craig Porter Jr. in between timeouts and in between fouls, and being able to talk to them on the sideline during those closeout moments, that has an impact on how the game comes out because you get that extra mentorship, you get that extra motivation, you get that extra advice on what to do in certain situations from who the Cavs consider to be their closer in Donovan Mitchell. Donovan and Max Strus and Evan Mobley, who were all out, 60% of the Cavs starting lineup was not only out and unavailable, but also did not make the trip to Atlanta. So you didn't have those guys in the other player's ear. And tonight was a night that Darius Garland needed it. He finished with 15 points on 5 of 14 shooting while shooting 3 of 11 from beyond the arc. He was able to collect 7 assists and only had 2 turnovers. So like I said, he's still able to get his assists when he's not making shots. And he even mentioned how important that is and how having his teammates and how good they have been as different options has helped him continue to grow in that area. But you could see the frustration on Darius's face, and especially in that second quarter when he picked up his third foul, he didn't even go back to the bench and sit for the final minute. He went straight to the locker room. That's not something that you see normally from a player, but that's what happened for Darius. And I think having Donovan or Max on the sideline as those leaders would have been helpful and would have been able to be the voice of reason and also help him continue to stay on the path of the straight and narrow that they needed him to be on, and just be there to support him and give him the advice that he needs. Because sometimes these players can get caught up in the moment, caught up in their head and what's going on around them. And sometimes you need a leader like Donovan Mitchell to just bring you back down to earth. And that's kind of the big brother mentality that Donovan Mitchell's had for Darius since he's been on the Cavs, at least what I've seen. But I don't want to get too far into it because I have more to discuss. But we're going to take a quick break. And when I come back, we're going to talk about the unsung heroes that have been leaving their mark lately and if they need to be getting more recognition for the work that they've been doing. But before then, become a Cavs insider and interact with me and Chris by subscribing to Subtext. Sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word stop. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from Chris and me. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So the fans have been asking for Craig Porter Jr. to get more minutes. Well, he got them. And you know what he did? Exactly what the Cavs needed. He was one of the main players that was able to find his spots, get his actions going, and continue to facilitate for the team. He ended the game with 13 points, going 6 of 8 from the field in 15 minutes played. He also was able to grab 4 rebounds and dish out 2 assists and snag a steal. He was really active on the defensive end as well. And I think that cannot be lost in what Craig Porter Jr. brings at the guard position. Because as we remember from his time at Wichita State, he was able to lead his team in almost every category, offensively and defensively. And that means that he's able to defend no matter the size of the player and able to just continue at a high motor and help his team on every facet of the game. And Craig Porter Jr. is somebody that I've raved about since the beginning of the season. And obviously, it's been hard to find minutes for him with the status of Darius Garland being the highest paid player in franchise history, and Donovan Mitchell, and the importance of Sam Merrill shooting, and all of those things locked in, on top of the fact that we know that Karis LeVert is the sixth man and also the third point guard behind Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So that makes Craig Porter Jr. the fourth point guard on this team. With that being said, with what I mentioned about Darius being true earlier, about how he struggled a little bit offensively lately and was frustrated and kind of in his own head, having Craig Porter Jr. be able to come in with a clear mind, with a sense of self, and understand what works in his game and what works against the Atlanta Hawks' defense from watching on the sideline, that helped so much to allow the Cavs to open up their offense and create for each other. So Craig Porter Jr. is one of the unsung players that I think needed to be mentioned in today's episode because of his contributions, but also the mindset that he's had and the patience that he's had to just continue to be ready with every moment that he's given. We remember the 76ers game when he bodied up Joel Embiid in the final minutes to help secure that victory. Well, You get that kind of Craig Porter Jr. again. My thing is, I wish he would have gotten more playing time in the fourth quarter down the stretch to allow him to continue to see where he ranks with this team in the closing minutes. And if he's able to contribute more than Darius would have been to end the game. And this is just a one game scenario, right? We talk about this a lot. You stick with what's working. And in this sense, Craig Porter Jr. was having more success offensively than Darius Garland. And that's why I feel like he should have been able to stick on the court. And he was able to help out defensively as well, while Darius was having some issues on the defensive end with his matchups. But the other player that I think the Cavs players have harped on the last couple of games that needed to get more recognition is George Niang. George Niang had a bounce back game. We know that he has been struggling offensively as of late. He had hit a slump and he was getting hate left and right from fans. And honestly, his play was not being conducive to the team at that time. But we all understand how the NBA and basketball works. Slumps happen. Stages of the season where you're not playing your best basketball happen. If you're playing at the highest level for the entire season, you're in the MVP conversation. And that's the thing that we need to remember. So George Niang bounced back, went 5 of 8 from the field, 3 of 4 from 3-point range for 13 points, and had 3 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. So, yes, we know that George Niang can be a liability on the defensive end. But in just his second start of the season and the second time that he started in more than one game since the 2021-2022 season when he was with the 76ers, you got to see what George Niang brings on the court. Again, there were positive signs for George Niang. Sometimes that's all you need to recognize that you can make an impact. And I think he had that moment when he was bodying up Kristaps Porzingis against the Celtics just a night ago. Even though Kristaps made the shot over Niang, you could see the frustration in Niang's face because he knew how well he had defended that play. And that gives you confidence. We talk about how important confidence is for this team, and that is something that you can gain for either side of the ball, offensively and defensively. Now, what does George Niang bring on a nightly basis, whether or not he's having a good night on the court? He brings his vocal leadership. Jarrett Allen is known as the vocal leader of the defense, and yet Jarrett mentioned post game that George Niang was the one that was communicating more efficiently, was communicating more often to help them get the job done on the defensive end. And we go back just another day to when the Cavs faced the Celtics, and Dean Wade mentioned that George Niang was the person that continued to speak life into his game, to give him motivation, to tell him to empty the clip, tell him that he could shoot it 100 times and just see what happens. Because that's the confidence that sometimes you need to instill in your teammates, and especially when they're hot. So, George Niang, someone who we knew brings a lot to the locker room of the Cavs, brings a lot of attention on the offensive end with his shooting prowess and his ability, but also is growing his game as a veteran to try and limit the areas where he can be targeted for the opposing teams. That's huge. Knowing your weaknesses and being able to address them is something that only veterans and people that are aware of themselves can do. And that's also a life thing. Like knowing what you're good at and knowing what you're not good at, and being able to work on what you're not good at, work on your weaknesses to try and turn them into strengths. And sometimes you don't need to turn them into strengths. Sometimes you just need to get better for yourself. But the reality of this entire game is that they lost to the Atlanta Hawks. And unfortunately for the Cavs, that pushes them to a game behind the Milwaukee Bucks in the second seed with the Magic trying to close the gap between them in the 4th seed and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the 3rd seed. We all understand the difficulty of this March schedule for the Cavs. They have to now go back to Cleveland to face the Timberwolves without Donovan Mitchell, without Evan Mobley, and possibly without Max Strus. And I have to say this because I don't think I went into depth about this enough. And I think you guys deserve to know exactly what's going on with Evan. So, Evan on Wednesday underwent an MRI that confirmed his left ankle sprain after coming out of the game on Tuesday against the Celtics in the 3rd quarter. The ankle sprain will have Evan evaluated in approximately 1 week. So that means a week without Evan. That means 2 more games without Donovan Mitchell. And Max Strus has not been confirmed about how long he'll be out, because we know that Max is probably arguing with anybody saying that he can't play, because him being out more than 1 game already signifies how serious his injury could be. But we cannot go too far into that because we don't want to say anything that hasn't been confirmed. But the Cavs will have to face the Minnesota Timberwolves, who has the tandem of Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. We'll have to see if Karl Anthony Towns plays. He was ruled out for Thursday's game against the Pacers with left knee soreness. But they also have Anthony Edwards, who is a problem on offense. But because the Cavs have a different starting lineup that utilizes Isaac Okoro, Dean Wade, and Jarrett Allen, they actually have a better lineup suited to guard Anthony Edwards. But that makes it difficult for Jarrett Allen to decide to guard between Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. So we'll have to see if Karl Anthony Towns can play and how much he impacts the game on Friday. But with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs insider and interact with Chris and me by subscribing to Subtext. Sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around, because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me and Chris. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast, and the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.